This build has the ability to grant you and your allies infinite restoration, give you infinite rifts, infinite Helions, infinite radiant uptime, and all passively without getting a single kill, allowing you to completely lock down any areas of the map and dominate game modes like Dominion Trials and Competitive Collision. Not to mention, your teammates will absolutely love you when you're using this build. In this video, I'm going to show you what you'll need to put the build together, what options you'll be able to use to suit your playstyle, give you some tips and tricks to use it, and lastly, offer some points on how to counterplay against it when you match someone using it. And this time I've added some insight into some interesting numeric values for everything I could test for all of you stat nerds out there. If you're a hunter or a titan main, check out my prismatic hunter guide and hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss the builds that I've got coming for titan. Also, make sure to join my community Discord if you have any questions or want some people to game with. Let's get into the guide. To start us off, this build revolves around two insanely strong items that came out in the final shape. The first item is the Speaker's Sight Exotic Helmet, which turns your healing grenade into a turret that constantly grants you and your allies restoration and cure over a 15-second period. And on top of that, it also spawns orbs out of thin air whenever you heal your allies. This orb can be created again every 10 seconds and spawns directly inside the ally you heal, allowing them to instantly pick it up and potentially proccing any orb mods that they might have on their boots, such as recuperation or better already for even more healing. The second item you'll need is the new Helion aspect. Activate your class ability to summon a solar mortar that lobs flaming projectiles at distant targets. Targets damaged by the mortar are scorched. This mortar lasts a whopping 20 seconds and is extremely annoying to fight, applying Scorch and preventing health regen, while hitting for 40 some impact damage, plus scorching for ticks of 5 with each fireball to assist you in your gunfights. Helion and Speaker Sight in combination make it nearly impossible to lose a primary gunfight, granting you both defensive heals and offensive damage passively while you fight. Next up, let's talk about the fragments. There are 4 fragments that perfectly synergize with the build, and I would recommend you run. The first fragment is absolutely essential, Ember of Benevolence. Applying Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to allies grants increased grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration for a short duration. This build can apply Restoration and Cure with the Speaker's Sight healing turret, as well as apply Radiant to your allies with another fragment that I'll get to shortly. Being able to apply all 3 of these buffs to your team will give you a very high uptime on the extra ability regen from Ember of Benevolence and keep your abilities chaining while making you an extremely helpful teammate. Here's some numbers. With Ember of Benevolence, if you throw your healing turret near an ally, the cooldown will be so fast that you'll get your healing turret back in 15 seconds at 100 discipline, which happens to be the same as the duration of the turret, giving you infinite turret uptime as long as you're healing your allies. Ember of Benevolence can also massively reduce your rift cooldown. A normal rift will take 48 seconds to regenerate at 100 recovery, but if you throw a healing turret near an ally, this cooldown will be brought down to a hilarious 15 seconds, which happens to be the same duration as the rift, giving you infinite rift uptime. The next fragment is Ember of Solace. Radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. This will help the continuous healing from your healing turret while keeping your radiant damage boost for longer. Ember of Solace will increase the restoration duration on your healing turret from 4 to 6 seconds, allowing you to heal longer after the turret goes away or if you step away from the turret. The third fragment is Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. This happens to pair extremely well with the Helion aspect, which gives you the mortar whenever you use your class ability. This mortar scorches targets, recharging your class ability with Ember of Singeing, which will then give you another Helion. The last fragment I run is Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. On top of the weapon damage boost from Radiant, this will also proc Ember of Benevolence, and with Ember of Solace, the effect is extended, lasting 12 seconds. One more fragment I would consider swapping to if you're resurrecting your teammates a lot in something like Trials or Competitive is Ember of Mercy. When you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration. This will massively help you gain advantage when picking up a res and making it even more difficult for your revived teammate to get farmed, as well as applying restoration to your teammate for Ember of Benevolence. Now, let's cover the rest of the abilities to fill out the kit. Initially, I thought that Phoenix Dive would be better for more Hellion uptime, but I changed my mind when I realized that healing rifts had an insane 15-second cooldown if you healed an ally with your turret. Combining the healing rift with your turret and Hellion makes it incredibly difficult to fight you, and putting the setup on an objective will lock down the area entirely. For your second aspect slot, you have the choice between Touch of Flame, Heat Rises, and Icarus Dash. There's an argument for all of them. Here's a quick breakdown of each one. Try all three and pick your favorite. Touch of Flame provides an incredibly strong boost to your healing output, boosting both the effectiveness of your healing grenade's instant healing and the strength of the restoration over time. Here's a side-by-side comparison showing a healing turret with Touch of Flame versus a healing turret without Touch of Flame. Heat Rises also works with Speaker Sight, spawning a turret right in front of you whenever you consume your grenade to use Heat Rises. Be careful eating grenades too close to a wall, as they very often will go inside of the wall. If you want to float, I'd recommend using Phoenix Dive to give yourself a way to get down since you won't have Icarus Dash. And lastly, of course, Icarus Dash gives you an avenue for movement abilities and pairs extremely well with Incinerator Snap if you know how to snap skate. For your super and melee ability, it's up to you and can be influenced by whether you use snap skating or not. And finally, make sure you use Healing Grenade. The last and very important part of the build is the artifact mod Radiant Orbs, which grants you Radiant every time you pick up an orb, which you make a lot due to Speaker Sight, which gives you an orb whenever you heal an ally up to once every 10 seconds. Picking up an orb once every 10 seconds, with the Radiant lasting 10 seconds, will give you infinite Radiant uptime. Next, let's move on to the weapons. The weapons for this build are incredibly versatile since the build works with just the exotic armor and your ability setup. But for extra synergy, you could try getting all of your healing activated buffs with Lumina, a support frame healing auto rifle, or even something with heal clip. I actually found the best results I got in trials running this loadout with an auto rifle due to the consistent healing nature combined with the consistent engagement nature of auto rifles. But whatever you feel comfortable playing with will work fine. In summary, use Speaker Sight to respawn restorative turrets and gain passive buffs off of all your fragments to maintain a higher uptime on your Rift, Radiant, Restoration, and Hellions. Here's the complete build overview in case you missed anything. Now I've got 3 playstyle tips that you should keep in mind while using the build. The first tip that you should keep in mind is that your turret can easily be destroyed with just a few shots from the enemy, so prioritizing good turret placement is important. The turret will stick to walls and ceilings unlike a stasis turret, so try and throw your turret somewhere unpredictable high up on a wall and make sure that it's out of sight from your opponents while still being able to reach you and your teammates with its healing. The next tip that you should make sure to focus on is to heal your allies. Prioritizing healing your allies is extremely important as the ability regen of this build is much faster when you heal your allies due to Ember of Benevolence, which only works on your allies and not yourself. Make sure you communicate and stick with your team to get the full benefits of the build. The third and final tip is to prioritize zone control. This build only works with a stationary turret and rift setup, so you'll want to make sure that you throw your setup down somewhere where you'll be sticking around. There's no point in using the build if you throw everything down and then leave the area. Now for Counterplay. With the rise of popularity of this build, I'd like to give you some tips for when you go up against it. Here's 3 tips that will help you play against the build. Firstly, taking a gunfight with someone who can immediately heal can be unpredictable, and you can minimize your risk of loss due to them having a sudden health boost by peek shotting with cover and using a single fire weapon like a hand cannon. The other way to counter consistent heals is by just one-shotting them. Play aggressively if the map allows you to with a one-shot special weapon such as a shotgun or a fusion rifle. The healing won't matter if they die in one shot. Lastly, try and take map control before they can. If you establish control of the objective faster than they won't be able to set up their rifts and turrets on the point. You should be able to always beat a Speaker Sight Warlock to the point if you're running a movement exotic or a grapple. If you found this video useful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so I know I should make more content like this. Thanks for watching. Bye!